I still occasionally run into people who haven't bought Apple Watches yet, and I always ask them, what the heck is wrong with you? Or I've even somehow run into people that have tried using Apple Watches and then gotten rid of them. They either give them away or sell them because they're like, I just don't use it. It just ain't worth it. I can't justify it. And that absolutely drives me bazonkers. So in today's video, I'm talking a bit bigger picture. I'm not referring specifically to my Series 7 Apple Watch. I'm just talking about the top 10 things that I use my Apple Watch for that you can basically do on all Apple Watches. Doesn't have to be the Series 7, doesn't have to be the SE, but it cannot be the Series 3 just because it's ugly, not because it can't do any of the things on the list. But I've nailed down all of the things that I find myself using very, very frequently, okay? I'm not talking about features that I use like once a month. I'm talking about either daily or every other day as to why the Apple Watch has become a pivotal point within the Apple ecosystem for me and what I love about using it the most. Let's begin. So yeah, this list is kind of based on what I use the most and what I value the most, but not very specifically, so don't hold it to a T. But first and foremost, what I think I use my Apple Watch for the most is notification management. Just being able to manage all of the different texts, whether it's from my wife or friends or family or people I work on the tech podcasts with, being able to have all of those text messages or notifications from any number of third-party apps I'm sure you guys have, and getting a little taptic feedback instead of a stupid noise all the time kind of drives me nuts when people just let their phone vibrate or make sound constantly, when you could easily just have a silent little tap tap on the watch and I check it and I can very quickly tell with just a flick of my wrist, oh, this text is important, I should address this right away. Thankfully, Series 7 has a keyboard so I can respond pretty quickly, but even if you don't have the Series 7, just having a way to manage, oh, this is important, I should address this, versus, oh, this is a text message from a friend of mine that wants to share a meme or a video, that's not super crucial or important. So I will get to that when I have some free time. And I'm not just talking about the notification of just the taptic feedback, it's also the actual complications on watch faces are incredibly useful to me because I have the messages complication, which means even if someone texts me and I have do not disturb on, or they're part of a big group message where there's a bunch of people talking to each other but not to me specifically, I can see how many unread messages there are without having to open messages and without having to get tapped on the wrist. And I'll just see, oh, 3 or 4 messages, and I'll just tap on the widget. It opens up and I can see 2 people in the group chat having a conversation with each other, so I go, okay, this ain't too important, I can move on. But if there's another circumstance where I have do not disturb on and I see a bunch of messages coming through, it could be a parent, it could be a loved one that's like, hey, I need your help, or I need a ride, or I ran out of gas or something. So just having all of that info right at a glance away has been immensely useful, and it helps you figure out what messages need your attention right away and what notifications can be ignored. When I didn't have an Apple Watch, it was very hard to know exactly when I should pull the phone out of the pocket, when I should walk over and pick it up. So notification management, first and foremost, I use it for that basically constantly. Another incredibly common use case that I've always been extremely helpful for, not to mention I've run into people that when I use this feature, they go, oh man, maybe I should get a watch. Pinging my iPhone. This doesn't sound like technically that big a deal, but the number of times people just misplace their phone around the house, or it falls between the couch cushions, or they leave it somewhere and just forget about it, has actually been incredibly common. I see people doing this fairly frequently, and I pretty much do it every other day. I'll leave my phone somewhere in the house, and I just want to know where it went. So the fact that this is attached to my wrist, I just swipe up and hit ping. Boom, I know exactly where my phone is, and if you don't hear the pinging at all, you know you've got to look a lot further. So even if you left your phone in the car on accident, if you ping it and you don't hear anything in the house, you're not going to waste so much time looking through the couch cushions. So incredibly useful. Our smartphones are a huge portion of our everyday lives, so being able to easily track it down with something attached to your wrist, yes, absolutely worth it for that alone. I wish the Apple Watch could do more in this next example, number 3, but it's still pretty great in its current state, which is just being able to unlock my iPhone when I'm wearing a mask. I was traveling a lot lately, and of course I had to have a mask on for many, many hours at a time, and Face ID would not have worked if I did not have an Apple Watch that was automatically unlocking the phone for me. I love that because if someone by chance happens to unlock my phone without me, I get the little notification on my watch and I can lock it really quickly if I need to. That hasn't happened yet. I've never needed to do it, but it does allow my wife to unlock my phone fairly quickly, which I appreciate when she needs to access pictures or some finance stuff. And because she has an iPhone SE, her battery dies pretty quickly. So the Apple Watch is the key to my iPhone quite a lot of the time, but also my MacBook. It's cool that they've added Touch ID to the Macs. That's fine and dandy, but honestly, I don't use Touch Touch ID very much on my MacBook Pro, literally because every time I open my MacBook, it unlocks via my Apple Watch anyway. So that saves a lot of time. It gets rid of passwords, which I feel like we always have to enter too many passwords in our daily lives. So I'm grateful that the Apple Watch unlocks that. It unlocked my iMac Pro before I got my MacBook. So just having a key to instantly unlock most of your Macs is really, really nice. And yes, that still counts as one example. Basically, Apple Watch is your security key that doesn't really require much attention because it automatically unlocks whenever you put it on and then unlock your phone with Face ID or Touch ID. Don't really have to enter a passcode that often. So another fairly common occurrence around the house that I've run into a lot is actually if it's dark out and I'm looking for something or I'm trying to turn off a light in a particular room, but of course it's going to be dark, so you don't want to trip on anything on your way back to the bedroom. Having something attached to your wrist that can turn into a flashlight is also super duper helpful. Yeah, you'll notice most of these examples are not third-party applications. You know, I actually don't think the Apple Watch needs that much third-party support to be useful, and this is one of just those built-in, baked-in watchOS features that I use a lot because the Apple Watch display gets actually really, really bright. And I mean, that might help because I have the largest display you can possibly get on an Apple Watch, maybe any watch. And whenever I activate the flashlight, I can see so much better, even if you're in the dark and you need both hands for some reason. If you're like picking up multiple things, the watch is not occupying your hand space, but it is illuminating the entire room, which makes it far easier to see, and you don't have to fumble around with your phone flashlight and have to long press on that widget and everything. Plus, you have to hold the phone itself or try to prop it up somewhere. Having something that you can wear that also provides a ton of light, super duper useful, and I use it all the time, so it's made number 4. Number 5 is also something that I've used a whole lot more because of the pandemic and having to wear masks all the time. Apple Pay, which has existed for quite some time, but I love the fact that you don't have to unlock Apple Pay with your watch like you do with your phone. If you want to activate the wallet app, you gotta double tap and then it has to get a good scan of your face in order for the phone to actually pay. But because so many of us are wearing masks, the Apple Watch doesn't need that unlocking step. So you just double tap the side button and boom, you're ready to pay. And pretty much everywhere that supports Apple Pay, my Apple Watch is my go-to because oftentimes I'm holding groceries or I'm holding bags. My phone is my pocket. I don't want to have to dig that out. The watch is right there on the wrist, so being able to easily tap and done, that's it. I can just walk away. First of all, too many cash register people are surprised by that. They're always like, whoa, you paid with your watch? It's been around for years. It's not that complicated. But yeah, so many people are still impressed by that. But it's one of those things that, like, yeah, the iPhone can do it, but it's just so much worse at doing it. I hardly ever choose the phone to pay with because the phone's typically in my pocket and my hands are typically kind of full. So just being able to quickly click that side button instead of having to put stuff down, super convenient, and I use all the time. So Apple Pay makes number 5. Number 6 is probably more helpful in the wireless world where we have more AirPods. You know, when we had wired earbuds and stuff, we would have a little volume rocker on those wires. Now we don't really have those anymore with AirPods or any kind of wireless headphones, so it's harder to adjust volume with the wireless world. That's where the Apple Watch steps in because it provides a wireless way for you to control how loud the music is when you're listening to stuff. So of course, anytime I'm listening to music on my headphones, if it gets too loud or if I want to hear something that's going on around me, just being able to lower the volume right off the digital crown, super convenient, and it works with Spotify or Apple Music. You could even be listening to a YouTube video in the background and lower the volume through the digital crown. Saves me a ton on time having to reach into my pocket and try to feel for the volume buttons best I can. So just volume control, again, something I use all the time. It's super useful. Another one that I feel is super underrated and not enough people talk about is Apple Maps. No, I don't literally plug in destinations on my watch so that I can get walking directions, but whenever you pull up a destination on your phone and plug in those coordinates and then the phone starts giving you directions as you're driving, you actually get tapped on the wrist when it's time to take your exit. And if the phone is doing something else, you know, sometimes my wife will leave GPS so that she can change the music, or she wants to text someone for me. Obviously, I don't want to text while I'm driving, so if someone's reaching out to me while I'm driving, I'll say, honey, can you pick up the phone? Can you see what they said? She'll read the message to me. I'll tell her what to respond. So there's directions coming up, but the phone is occupied, right? The phone is doing stuff. So having the watch always telling me what my next turn is or my next lane change, that's extremely useful. And again, quiet. I really can't stand the GPS navigation constantly nagging me, like, turn on this road, turn on that, then take this exit, because usually everyone in the car has to stop talking, and that's annoying. So just having a quick little glance at the wrist and you know, oh, okay, this exit's coming up, this is what I need to move towards, and if the the watch isn't tapping you, you know, you're good. You can just keep going in the direction you've been going. Use that feature literally all the time, especially on trips. It's extremely useful. So the Apple Maps navigation system is just way, way better when you have an Apple Watch. Next is something I can't say I do necessarily every day, but at least once or twice a week: silent alarms. I think this is an absolute game changer when it comes to waking yourself up in the morning. The fact that the Apple Watch doesn't actually have to make noise, it can just vibrate the taptic engine and slowly wake you up instead of having to wake up to or the crazy iPhone alarms in the morning. And basically every sound Apple put in iOS that's supposed to like wake you up sounds annoying and gives you PTSD whenever you hear it later in the day. You're like, oh god, that's right, I have to wake up sometimes. I hate all the noises they put in the clock app, and honestly I hate most noises that devices make. I don't want them pinging for notifications. I don't want them talking, telling me where to turn. Just find an elegant, simplistic, and unobtrusive way to deliver information. And with the silent alarm feature, you don't have to have a bunch of noise when you start the day. You just get a little vibration on your wrist and you slowly wake up. It's incredibly calming. It's comforting. You're not like instantly trying to shut something off like, oh god, it's so noisy, turn it off quick. With this, it's already on your wrist, so you wake up, you feel the vibration, and you just are like, oh, okay, stop, and then you're ready to start the day. Maybe it doesn't work for some people and you need something loud to keep you awake, but for me, especially if we have to get up early or if we have some kind of early appointment and we stayed up late the night before, having silent alarms, oh so helpful. Thank you, and not really something the iPhone is capable of doing easily, at least. So that was number 8. Number 9 is something that I bet most of you thought I would have brought up earlier: activity tracking. Yeah, I know, when you go on Apple's website, it's basically nonstop telling you about here's how you burn more calories and here's how you sign up to a stupid streaming service that just shows you enthusiastic people working out. It partners with your Apple Watch and you watch these people work out, and it's all about closing rings, and it's all about swimming, right? It's all about being so active and they're burning so many calories, and that's what the Apple Watch is good for. And if you don't buy one, you basically don't care about your health. No, that makes it near the bottom of my list because pretty much all wearables do some kind of health tracking. Obviously, I think the Apple Watch is better at it than most because the activity rings feature is so simple. Sharing your calories burned and your different challenges throughout the day with other iOS users and Apple Watch owners out there, that's really cool, fine and dandy, and yes, I do it. I try to close my rings every day. Sometimes I don't, but for the most part, being able to track, you know, when I go on a walk or a hike or track a run or track a game of tennis, there's all kinds of different activities that the Apple Watch is good at tracking, and it gets a lot of data, even GPS data, so you can see exactly where you biked or hiked and what your peak heart rate was. All that information is useful, and yes, I do use it pretty frequently. Not high on the list, but it's there. And number 10 is a big one. This is a feature I know everybody didn't think about, but absolutely something I use the Apple Watch for every single day, and that is telling the time. It's pretty good at that, you know? You're just like, oh, what time is it? I know what time it is now. Yeah, that gets number 10 because, again, something you use it for, and it's pretty dang good at it. Lots of watch face options, you know, lots of customization. Still no third-party watch faces, but pretty hard to find one you don't like these days. So there you have it. The top 10 features I use with my Apple Watch on a regular basis. If you don't think the Apple Watch is worth it, I would heavily encourage you to give it a try and see if any of the things I talked about today could end up being useful in your daily life. And if none of them are useful, congratulations. You just saved yourself a couple $100. This is your Apple Sheep here. See you all in the next one.